Everything worked before, so if it doesn't work after, it's definitely my fault. Welcome back to the Lost Cause Ranch. The last couple videos on the LR4, we were sorting out the engine problems, but we got all that packed away because today we are sorting out the body side of the LR4. There's really no coming back from what we're about to do. We do it wrong, we make the budget LR4 junk, which is kind of nerve-wracking because this thing has been a staple in my Land Rover life. It's been the most useful one I've ever owned. Oh. We got a Land Rover in the way. I kind of just bashed the garage door into the roof rack. Much better. We'll figure out exactly where to go with this for the time being a little bit later. We needed the body at a little more reasonable height for the next step. Just like everything on the LR4, our sticker's looking a little rough. First thing we need to get out of the way is the roof rack. This isn't going to be able to go back on after we're done with our modifications. We need to get the solar panel out of the way as well. Looks awful naked. Haven't seen it like that for a long time. Now, like I said, the roof rack will not go back on. That may be available if anyone would like a budget-friendly roof rack for an LR3, LR4. If you remember way back, we built that out of aluminum extrusion, some 80/20 stuff. Not a bad little deal. That was just kind of in the way. This one can go away too. Kind of running out of real estate here. You can see I was hauling a little wood in it at one point in time, but we're gonna get all the rear interior out of the way before we can get to the next step. And we'll bust through this pretty quickly here, as it's just a bunch of nuts, bolts, and plastic clips. Yeah, found a water bottle. This is a lot of work. One would think it'd be a lot easier to push without a body on, but it still feels like a heavy pig. Got a nice steering wheel too. We're putting it in the machine shop side for now, which also means we got a working garage door. A little bit of a tight squeeze. Come on through. We're getting to the interesting point now. We got to figure out what we're going to do with all this stuff over here. We got to kind of sort through all the wiring and modules and pair that all back and get everything that is from the back doors rearwards out of the way. You've probably guessed by now, but yes, we are cutting the back half of the LR4 off. That is going to be discarded, no longer used for any of our purposes. Yes, back there behind the lightweight. One of those gray things back there, which was in that Acme crate, is a crucial part we need for chopping the LR4 in half. And in typical Joe fashion, I buried them. But that's a future Joe problem. We got a lot of stuff on the LR4 to get out of the way first. But some of this stuff is critical that we need to keep and relocate. So that's gonna be our interesting part of this project. I mean, cutting the back off is gonna be kind of interesting too. And with the back gone, I don't quite think the TVs and the headrests are gonna be used much. I wanna keep as much of the radio stuff as possible because I really do like the factory setup and I'd like to keep that functional if possible. I'm not smart enough to go in and program certain stuff out, so we'll have to see how we handle that. Maybe just some trickery. But for now, we're just gonna kind of go in here and start removing stuff and getting it out of the way. And we'll kind of have to go through and sit down, organize, and lay out everything later on down the road. It'll be pretty interesting to see if any of this stuff ever actually functions again. Everything worked before, so if it doesn't work after, it's definitely my fault. What one is this? We got everything pretty much out of the way back here. We just need to get the rear HV box out of the way. This has the heater core, evaporator, blower, climate control for all the rear stuff. We'll need to go underneath to address the coolant and AC lines. We got our taillight wiring pushed through the hole. Need to get our parking sensor wiring pulled through here. We just got some of the grommets in the way. But before we go underneath, I'm gonna get the headliner out of the way. Obviously, a lot of this stuff is not gonna be able to stay. Well, that's interesting. Looks like we had a Mickey up top. Usually they live down by the floor. Get our A-pillar trim out of the way so the headliner can drop down. There's just one Torx behind the airbag cover which popped off somewhere. Same thing over here. This is the little airbag cover I was talking about. Peeling some of the door seals out of the way, and it's just gonna fall. I didn't really leave myself a whole lot of real estate to get this out of here. Kind of have some doors in the way. Now, if we were keeping this in one piece, you'd want to do this a tad more carefully than I'm doing it. We're kind of destroying it. We're gonna have to rewrap it anyways after we slice it. That, and I really didn't want to open the garage door up to slide it out that way because it's frickin' 6 degrees out. We just had one harness that was still attached to the roof up here. We can lay this up front there. And we have the passenger side all cleaned off. So the side curtain airbags are a little bit too much of a curtain. They go way too far back. So our evap and heater core hoses just come through the floor right behind the driver wheel here. We also have that big multi-plug to feed up through, so we got to undo that. Other than that, underneath here, I think the only thing we need to do is kind of unsnip the brake lines. out of their holders. These have enough rust that I'll probably redo them, but I'd like to just keep them intact for now. No sense in slicing those out. But I told you we had a solution to the rust back here. Just chop it right out of there. Nice. Driver's side's clean, but boy, is that a lot of wiring that's tucked back there that we got to figure out something to do with. We also got a box full of modules. All right, it's finally Future Joe time. And we got to get this guy squeezed out of here. I got quite the disaster to clean up, but we really need to get the rear of that off first because it's going to mean a trip to the scrapyard, and we got a lot of scrap to haul. I just don't want to make more than I need to, and that is going to be a good container to hold more scrap. You know, we may get lucky. I may be able to walk this guy around the tires without having to move all of these. This is the Defender 20s that go on the Range Rover. This is the factory 21s. I should just get rid of those. I just got good tires. And this is why I have too much stuff. Don't worry, that's not the only one laying around. This isn't the only fun we're having around here. Well, that was a little less of an ordeal than I was expecting. Kind of cool. We get to use our third brake light on this still. So this is the first time I get a look at this kind of near the LR4. And just peeking at it, I think I'm going to drop the sunroof out of it. That's going to go back in. Our cut line's going to end up pretty close, so I just want that out of the way so we don't have to contend with it. I also need to pull all our trim up, which apparently isn't going to take much. There, that job's done. So this guy here is what we stopped at Lucky 8 in New York for. I don't know if you can read that, but it is a Long Ranger cab kit. Guy is half of what was in that Acme crate that we went and picked up. Long Ranger is over in the UK. Earlier this year, we went ahead and ordered a couple cab kits, obviously one for the LR4. This guy here fits the LR3, LR4, Discovery 3, Discovery 4 in the rest of the world because the US names it stupid. And we're going to use this to turn our beloved budget LR4 into some sort of pickup truck. Yes, I told you this is my most useful Land Rover, and we're going to make it useful in a different fashion. It's definitely a different frickin' fashion. I'm super excited about this. The only problem here is there's no instructions. So we're at the point in this project where it's kind of the point of no return and where we can essentially junk the LR4. We do this wrong, this guy is pretty much scrap. So no instructions, no measurements, no nothing on where to cut. So we're gonna have to do the old cut twice, measure once. So to give you a little bit of a visual on how this is supposed to go together, or at least to the best of my knowledge that I can figure out how it's supposed to go together, is this is where the rear edge of our front door will sit. So that part butts up against this. So theoretically that should mean this flange here will sit on top of that B pillar, which is good because this will keep a lot of the structural rigidity intact. But then if we look inside the cab here, we'll notice that there is no floor, which by my rough looks appears to be about there. So we need to leave at least that much of the floor in place. Then comes the fun part, the roof. We have a little recessed lip across the whole way, so I'm assuming we'll be slicing that and tucking that lip underneath and bonding it in that fashion. But if you look at the shape there, it's not exactly a straight line. It dives in towards the center and back out towards the edges. So how we're gonna measure that? I'm not exactly sure. They didn't make this too easy. Some other good news, we're gonna get rid of our faded paint on the roof. Or if we see it now, non-existent paint. Literally just rubbed the paint right off it. That's crazy. So I guess it's time to start taking some measurements. So from what I can tell, looking at it, is we're cutting it in front of the rear bump up. So it'll just be flat with this and continue on to about there. We're gonna start taking a couple measurements, and the first thing I wanna start off with is slicing some of the excess carpet out of the way, get that out of there so we can peel back some more of the wiring and just get that in front of where we're gonna cut. So if we go right at our body line here where the door meets, we're just about 16 inches to the back side. And if we go from that point, give us a little gap and go 16 inches, that puts us right at pretty close to this bolt hole. We'll see in a minute how close my calibrated eyeball guess is, but what we're gonna do is cut the carpet right at this point across. Get that out of the way. I'm definitely not nervous about this at all. No. I think we got a pretty clear pathway to start chopping stuff up here now. It's the utilitarian LR4. I'm gonna do our first rough cut here. We're gonna leave quite a bit on the table. This roof line looks like it follows the door up and then dives in from there. So theoretically, our final one should end up somewhere around here. And I'm guessing in this vicinity, something like that. The bend probably mimics some of the sunroof, but I think we're gonna try and get a little tricky in here and leave this lower part in place. We'll see how this all works out. But I think I'm gonna cut a couple inches back just to be safe. That I'm just, and this little bump out appears to match the lower trim on the door. So I think we can leave the rocker in place all the way to the back there. So if we go, we're about 15 inches there. If we figure from the back of the door, 15 inches is right about there. From this side, that leaves us right about there. So straight across that. We also found a swimming pool. That'll get drained out here in a second. It looks like we're gonna end up right in front of this cross member. Now after that fiberglass cap is in place in the back there, we're gonna add some structural rigidity back in. There'll be some external protection as well. But for now, we just need to get the back out of the way. Now I'm starting with the top because I want it to kind of V apart and not pinch the blade up top. So I kind of want the two ends to settle away from each other. I don't think there's any going back at this point. Be interested to see this upper rail on the inside. There was quite a few layers in there, and that was pretty tricky to get through. When you have multiple layers of sheet metal, the Sawzall doesn't like it a whole lot. It just bounces everything around. So the zip disc sometimes is a little better. Wish I had like a 7-inch one though. In case you're ever wondering how much the roof adds to structural integrity, look at how much that guy moves. Even though we still have the floor in place, that's a right for our case though, because this B pillar and forward is going to be nice and solid. Now if we were to cut it in front of that B pillar, it'd be a different story. What was that? Ah, I think that blade's probably done. The LR4 tougher than Milwaukee. Our little crack up front is starting to open up quite a bit. We're just about apart, I think. I think we got an LR2 and then another LR2. Guess there's not really any going back now. I also need to figure out what to do with the back. All right, so we're gonna try and winch the back half on. We got the rear of it sitting on the trailer, a jack under the front. We're off the hoist. So the jack should roll with it, but I have a feeling it may not go exactly as planned. All right, we're gonna have to get the jack out from under there. Oh, we got a penny. Gotta save that, because this guy's probably gonna get expensive. All right, we need a jack this up to clear the wheel wells. This is gonna get sketchy. All right, don't do that at home. Let's see how strong I am. Oh, look at that. Straighten it right out by myself. I mean, we all know I'm a pretty strong guy. A little bit of a different view. The LR4 got quite a bit smaller. It's the race version now, ultra lightweight. I don't know that these buttons will be much use anymore. Not many seats to heat back here. I think this lower floor is pretty much cut to where it needs to be just by my eyeballs. When we actually get the cab up there, we'll see how everything meets up with the back here. And I think we'll probably plate or sheet everything closed, including our rockers. I want to do like 1/4 inch plate on the rockers, so if we want to come out with some sort of rear protection, we have something to bolt to. So I think the lower is good where it's at. We'll get the cab a little bit closer. And I'm deciding exactly what I want to do here. So we have this lip that drops down. I'm pretty sure that's designed to sit underneath the factory roof skin. And this is where our door meets up. So I think what I want to do is follow this door all the way up and cut the top skin at that. Then we're obviously going to have a bit of a gap here to maintain, a little door gap. 3/16 of an inch or so, which would leave 3/16 of an inch up top here, which I think will give us something to actually bond and smooth out, because we'll have to either like fiberglass or do some filler in that area to smooth everything out. So I'm thinking that 3/16 gap will give us something to work with. So we'll lay that out, do some measuring, figure out where our point goes in, and slice the top there. Then on the inner structure, like I said before, I want to leave most of this because our sunroof attaches to that. But I think we'll cut straight up from here and give us a nice clean edge. That then leaves us with a little bit of a situation here, because this will be cut back and the outer skin will be gone, but the inner skin will be here. So I think we'll have to slice part of the fiberglass out so we can slide that in. Same thing with our little roof rail pocket. The rear cap doesn't have that, but we're gonna cut the factory one down to the point where the cab meets. So we'll have to slice a section on each side out of that to accommodate for that dip. I really wish they would have had those rails all the way back. That just would have looked cleaner. So we have our rough finish cut line marked out there, which poses a little bit of a problem. I said I wanted to keep this, but with how close it's gonna end up to the sunroof, that just can't stay, which is all right. But that also means this lip is gonna have to go away, at least most of it. So this is from the UK. I'm guessing it was designed around a non-sunroof vehicle. Over here, we only got sunroofs. I guess I should actually ask, did you guys get non-sunroof Discovery 3s and Discovery 4s in the rest of the world? In the US, all our LR3s, LR4s, Discovery 3, Discovery 4 were sunroof vehicles. I mean, worst case scenario, we could always plug this hole, but I kind of just want to keep the sunroof in there. It fits nicely, and it's less work to leave the sunroof in there. It'll retain most of its mounting points. We'll just have to come up with something for mounting the motor, which is doable. And right here, we're gonna kind of Z this cut right along this 90-degree bend and straight down. We're gonna keep a straight line up from the pinch weld. I'm not exactly sure how many bites we're gonna have to take out of this. We're gonna cut a touch behind the line and then we can clean it up with a flap disc if we need to. So this is kind of what I'm thinking on the inner structure. We got the passenger side dissected a bit. This will stay. The cap will slip under. We'll clearance for that. This is what we were dealing with before. You can see we got a bunch of layers of steel, one that's like twice as thick on the center. Start doing the same over here. We got the cap side all clearanced out. The center lip is shrunk down to meet up with this little thin guy. The sides we have a slit so that can go around the roof here. Then a little cutout here and here. That'll clear our gutter and the little transition in this area where it goes from a single layer to dual layer. So we were just about ready to throw this up and meet it up with the LR4 for the first time, but then I noticed these dimples here on the side flange, and it looks like those coincide with where the hinge is for the rear door originally mounted. So it looks like it's gonna be a good mounting point for the rear fiberglass cab. So here is the real moment of truth. Was the long wait and the many thousands of dollars to get this over from England worth it? Will this thing actually fit? In the past, I've had some rough luck with fiberglass parts. A lot of times they need a lot of work. And on top of that, we don't know how this is gonna look. So let's see how our LR4 truck is gonna look. I need a stool. I'm vertically challenged. I am 100% a fan. I'll be honest, I was pretty nervous at how this would fit and ultimately end up looking. I didn't know about the bulk of this just flat area. But man, I am so freaking excited. We have an LR4 truck and we get to be nice to the people behind us and give them a little television. Let's see if these guys actually fit. Man, I just really can't get over how awesome this turned out. And the fitment's pretty reasonable. Mind you, we have not done any finish work. We'll have to do some cleaning up Around here, this is a little proud compared to the roof. But if we look along the inside seam, I'm pretty happy with how that all fits. We got a flare out on the pillar there. We dodge around it nicely. Our bolts fit in there nicely, and we follow the original rocker pretty well and wrap nice and tight along there. Now, we didn't adjust our floor cut at all, so let's check out where that ended up. And I'd say we can't ask for much better than that on the first go round. We'll mark a few places out, straighten it out, and then I think a flat plate, like I was talking, with a top and bottom flange, and we'll be able to bond the fiberglass to that, and that'll seal everything else up nice. Then up top here, we'll just have to pinch everything together, but that is slick. That just worked out as good as we could ever expect. I am freaking stoked right now. Now I want your guys' honest opinion down below. What do you think of our little truck conversion on the LR4? This was a pretty difficult decision to make. It is one where we could have really botched up the budget LR4 and made it essentially scrap. And having never seen an LR3, LR4, Discovery 3, Discovery 4 in person that has been converted to a truck, I didn't exactly know how it'd look. I mean, we have a D2 one already, but no LR4. This Long Ranger kit is looking great, at least so far. Next video on the LR4, we are gonna set this guy on to the chassis and kind of work out what we're gonna do in this section. Like I told you, this is gonna be more useful than it ever has been before, just in a different fashion. Yes, Hillbilly Deluxe, sweet pick 'em up truck. But as you know, we're missing the engine. I got these cylinder heads dropped off at the machine shop, and we'll have our decision on what's happening with that end of it on the next video as well. Appreciate you guys watching, appreciate you subscribing, and we will catch you on the next one. I mean, you gotta stick around for the fun stuff like this.